welcome back to Zombie Recaps. Today, we will talk about a horror movie from 2008 titled The Happening. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with all our latest and most exciting content. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. It's early morning in Central Park, and it is highly crowded with people. The park's long grass, beautiful trees, and cool breeze help people enjoy their time there. Two ladies on a bench are enjoying reading a book when they hear a horrific big scream. The woman notices that everyone around her has frozen in place. The park goes silent, gloomy and dead. Turning to her friend, the lady sees that her dear friend also freezes. She notices the crowd acting like a mob again, but stops moving when she observes the second time. Her best friend then uses chopsticks out of her hair and stabbed herself in the neck. Inside the work area, workers enjoy a conversation when a body falls, damaged and lifeless. When another body falls behind them, the contractor couldn't report what they had seen as they couldn't turn around in time. More loud thuds were heard one right after the other. In the distance, individuals are seen approaching the edge of the construction tower and jumping off, crashing to the surface. In a classroom in Philadelphia, Elliot is in the middle of a lesson when a woman enters to speak and calls him for a faculty meeting. Elliot enters into the group meeting where the teachers are being told about terrorist attacks and events. A staff member describes the attack and advises the teachers on ending the day and dismissing the children. Elliot is in strict compliance with the school's regulations and is letting the kids go home. Elliot's close friend and colleague Julian arrives in the doorway and shares with him that his family is going crazy with worry about the terrorist threat and are begging him to leave the city. He's offering to take Elliot and his wife with him. Elliot phones someone to deliver the news of his departure. After his phone call, he runs into Julian and tells him that he and his wife have some problems. Alma, Elliot's wife, was watching the breaking news on TV, and that's when her phone started ringing. She stares at it, patiently waiting for it to stop ringing. When she gets home from school, Elliot comes back and checks the news with Alma. He gets started on packing their stuff in the bedroom. Elliot reaches for his wedding ring in front of their wedding picture at the side table, which gives him a slight feeling of hope. While Alma is trying to silence the person on the phone, she gets a call again. Later, Julian along with his daughter Jazz meets Elliot at the railway station. Julian says that Julian's wife will go on the next train trip. Alma greets Julian from behind him. Julian greets Alma saying how delighted he is that she came. He is carrying several train tickets in his hand. Alma gets kind of annoyed when she hears the comment. She advises Elliot that they shouldn't talk about their marital issues with anybody else. Elliot additionally found it upsetting that he frequently fought with Julian over allowing Alma to go with them. After that, Julian along with the Jazz, Alma, and Elliot go to their train. Meanwhile, the city of Philadelphia is experiencing one of the attacks. Traffic is intense, and there is a sense of urgency. People come to a standstill as the wind brushes through them. Suddenly, people murder themselves in groups after some time. After sitting on the farther seat of the train, Alma calls back the annoying number she was trying to avoid. It was the guy she'd been seeing out a few days ago. She states that their encounter was simply a date. The chat swiftly moves to discussions of the assaults happening in Boston. Calling relatives from the bus passengers are getting anxious. Julian feels nervous since his wife Yvette is left in Philadelphia. Julian immediately calls her to alleviate his fears. Nevertheless, the frightened people around her get in the way of what Yvette says on the phone. Julian relaxed a bit after getting the text from Yvette stating she was on a bus headed from Philadelphia. Elliot scrambles to find a seat on the train, and because of the panic, he ends up next to Alma. She tells about an attack even in Boston, and people on the train were getting a bit calm and quiet. But at that, the train was left stranded in the middle of nowhere. After the passengers get out of the train, they run on several different lines while using their phones. Elliot approaches the train operators who choose to keep quiet about the odd pause of the train. One of them claims that the previously active service had to be terminated since it could not communicate with its destinations. Jess is terrified and is unwilling to leave Julian's side. Though Alma tries to calm her, she is quaking with fear. There was a restaurant nearby, so all the passengers decided to get a break and eat. Elliot was trying to maintain an effective conversation with Jazz, and a woman showed in a tag video in the zoo to convince everyone that this was an absolute catastrophe. A wildlife trainer willingly allows himself to be fed to a pack of lions as a tasty meat dish in the video. After a period, it was announced that the possibility of the attack being the work of terrorists was decreasing, as the toxic air began to spread to smaller cities from the densely populated ones. The newscaster additionally points out that these toxins shut down the brain. The restaurant manager draws attention to the fact that their restaurant is directly in the middle of the states where the catastrophe hit. A power outage occurs with no warning, interrupting the news. This concerned all the people inside the restaurant, and the frightened group ran outdoors asking passing vehicles to give them a ride. Elliot pleads with a driver to give them a ride, but is ignored as the driver drives away. Another passerby gives him a ride. Julian goes off on his own to see Event at Princeton and leaves Elliot behind. He has to leave Jazz to Elliot and Alma to search for Event, though he did promise Jess that he will come back on the drive to Princeton. Julian's and his group sees many men hanging from the trees above the road. As the ladies figure out that Princeton has already been infected, they go hysterical and start screaming. Julian requests that they put a cover over the air vents to keep the toxins out, but they fail to cover a little piece of the cloth on the car's top. The car comes to a sudden halt and then shoots ahead, making its way over trees in the forest before crashing. After the crash, Julian manages to stay alive, but he gets infected and dies by slashing his wrist using a window glass. In the meantime, Elliot and Alma realize it's best to avoid large cities in the country's northeast region. The car owner plans to escape but the group, so he thinks of heading to his place. After reaching, he introduced his nursery plants to them. He comes up with a theory that the plants might be the real reason behind the sudden attack of toxins. The plants are generating this airborne toxin to eliminate their threats, which would be us humans. When the group sets out, they find the bodies of the reasonably died people on the road. They see a soldier and many cars while getting away from the infested areas. Every single one of them brought the same bad news. Their starting sites were all full of victims. One realtor had recommended a more rural location to place their house away from cities and major roadways. The soldier is assembling the mob, while the plant couple and the soldier followed the bigger group. Elliot, Alma, and Jess accompanied the smaller group. The smaller group reaches the destination first. The wind flows through the smaller group while they're still kilometers away from the bigger group. The big group soldier starts babbling and hallucinating and then shoots himself. Now, after hearing the gunshot, the smaller group is alerted that something is not correct. Elliot is mentally preparing a solution from this. Large gatherings of humans appear to the plants as potential threats, so they're dispersing their toxins into the air. Now the screams and tells the small group to split into even smaller fractions. The party spreads in a hurry to run away in several different directions. Alma confesses to Elliot that she went on a date with a co-worker, and Elliot admits that he also discovered an attractive girl in the pharmacy. After the exhausting chase, Elliot, Alma, Jess, and two other teenage males stumble onto a huge house dressed and everything was fake inside, leaving them disappointed. The five see a group of people outside and witnesses everyone killing themselves due to inhaling the toxins. Somehow Elliot and the group find a house. They tried to break into the house for food, but the adult inside the house didn't let them in. Seeing this, one of the teams got outraged and started breaking the door. The adult pulled out a rifle and killed the teens out of anger. Just witnessed all these and gone frightened. The three again set their journey, but this time with less hope. They find an odd house and, to due to their luck, the old lady staying inside invited them in. After providing them with shelter and food, they tried to talk about what's going on. The old lady admits that she isolated herself from the world and has no idea what's happening. On the other end, people with TV are being updated on current events. It is stated that the toxins will increase at 9 a.m. the next day, and then rapidly decay to nothing. Elliot later spends the day looking for the old woman in the house. Elliot is frightened by the woman's toy papers in which she placed in her bed. After knowing that Elliot had seen the doll, the old lady starts shouting and leaves the house. Led to ran behind to get her, but it was too late. The woman stood still. Elliot rushed and signed to close the door and windows to restrict the toxins from entering. But since the old lady was smashing her head against the house windows, Elliot had to run and hide somewhere secluded. In the midst of this, he couldn't find Alma and Jess and somehow ended up in the cellar. Luckily, Alma and Jess are safe inside another basement. Elliot found out that a tube connected to the other sewing allowed Elliot to communicate with Jazz. He decides to give up. He believes that facing death together is comfortable for all of them. They commonly get out of their respective cellars and to meet each other. They hold hands tightly and move towards the toxins, anticipating their death. But to their surprise, they are still breathing even after a while. For a moment, they're confused. 3 months have passed by, and Elliot, Alma, and Jess are a family now, almost currently pregnant. And it seems like Elliot has a bright future with his current family, though the streets are pretty deserted with fewer vehicles running. This was a new beginning. In the news channels, a scientist put forward his theory on the toxins, saying that they cleansed many people, just like how red tide kills the fishes in the ocean. Even though the interviewer has a hard time accepting this fact, the scientist warns that this can happen again in other parts of the world. In Paris, two guys are having a conversation, and they turned back to hear a woman scream. The guy notices how the whole crowd is standing still. The toxins are back, and it's happening again. That is all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it thumbs up, subscribe to Zombie Recaps, and turn on notifications so you can get notified by YouTube when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching.